Guess what I have here? And this incredible bombshell information is just let out there like you pass gas in church. It's just quietly allowed, no fanfare. Guess what I have here? And this incredible bombshell information is just let out there like you pass gas in church. It's just quietly allowed, no fanfare. You just smell the stench of tyranny around you. You just smell the stench of tyranny around you. You just smell the stench of tyranny around you. You just smell the stench of tyranny around you. The globalists are coming in like a flood against free humanity, and I realize that we are, like it or not, the tip of the spear. I never intended to have this big of an effect. I never intended to be reaching this many people. Certainly I wanted to. And we are exponentially reaching tens of millions of people, many of them new, every single week. It is an incredible responsibility. Most of these people we're reaching have never come in contact with real information. They've never come in contact with full spectrum analysis where things are broken down historically with facts in a very easy to understand way. And it is having a huge effect when people are basically shown, not my opinion or my views, but what is admitted. And then suddenly they start making all the other connections for themselves, truly critically thinking. History, the present, the future opens up to them, and they are off and running. And that is so incredibly exciting. You know, they talked about Obama as if he was going to be the second coming of Abraham Lincoln. And I said, folks, that's very cryptic. The financial implosion is going to accelerate under Obama. The states are going to try to use 10th Amendment remedy to not go into global receivership through fraud. And the president is going to come in and invoke dictator powers. And the federal government is going to use as the precedent, because I'd see some of their lawyers talking about this years ago, Civil War martial law rules. Well, guess what I have today? From French news agency, Associated Press, Reuters, Washington Post, National Review. Guess what I have here? And this incredible bombshell information is just let out there like you pass gas in church. It's just quietly allowed, no fanfare. You just smell the stench of tyranny around you. And it's just, oh, no big deal. Obscure clause may help U.S. avert deficit and default. And there's no mention of the fact that 90+% of this debt is derivative, that our government has been induced to sign on to, and hence the people have foreign banking debt, that the vast majority of the bailout money went to foreign private families like the Rothschilds, the Queen of England, and others. That's now been made public. We told you that 3 years ago, but it was made public 3 months ago. We just happen to know who the private shareholders of the Fed were when it was set up. Haven't gotten that intel since then, but we know who pulls the strings. And they say here, powers used against the South will now be used against the Congress, and the president controls the power of the federal purse now. And they're actually in the news calling people extremist. I actually have it here. Going to go over it coming up. Extremist if you say Congress controls the issuance of currency and credit and the paying of debts. Now, that's a fact in the Constitution. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that Congress declares war. It's so well known, I'm not even going to cite the area of the Constitution. Go look it up yourself. But now they say, oh, we don't need the Congress, we have the UN, as Obama said in press releases. So this is all coming up. Stay with us. It's huge. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us, my friends, in defense of liberty and resistance to tyranny. The private mafia interests that control the mega central banks, the large defense contractors, and big pharma openly and publicly are setting up a tyrannical, fascistic, private corporate world government that wages war against the free market through corporate collectivism, popularly known as crony capitalism, but it really has nothing to do with that. We are here to shatter the controlled tiny box that people are in, the left-right paradigm. We are here to show people the hidden truth that is hiding in plain view. Very important broadcast today on this July 10th, 2011 Sunday broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me give you a preview of what's coming up. First off, this whole Fast and Furious ATF shipping in 30,000 guns into Mexico has now come to a head. And the Attorney General has been accused by the head of the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, of lying to Congress when he said that he knew nothing about the ATF plan to ship guns into Mexico. Now, it's now been ferreted out that even a year and a half ago, Holder gave speeches basically alluding to what he was doing, and now it's even in the Associated Press and other major publications that the FBI and DEA were involved as well, and yes, it was a Justice Department operation. Who believes the ATF would ship 30,000 guns to major cartels like Los Zetas if they were not given authorization? And the Attorney General has been caught lying, Eric Holder. This is huge, but I want to give you the full rest of the story. And as usual, we don't give you the rest of the story after the fact. Now you're ready to hear the information we covered 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and with total precision. And the videos have been reposted on Infowars.com. 2 years ago, we laid out everything that would transpire with absolute, complete, and total precision. Not because we're smart, but because we know how the crime syndicate that seized control of our government in 1913 operates. We know every one of the plays in their playbooks. Just like if you got your favorite football team and you watch them every year and you know the coach, you know what is in their playbook once you see the players go into motion. And we're going to lay all of that out today. And I put up a video that I shot on my iPhone 4 up to our YouTube channel with 125 million views. And it's the two parts of it have had more than 70,000 views. That means they'll get about 500,000 views. That's good. Should get about 10 million views, we wish. But Obama caught staging terror attack, part 1 and 2. And I, again, shot that yesterday from my home. I couldn't even really sleep on Saturday, being aware of all this coming to a head, because you have to ask yourselves, why were the guns shipped into Mexico? And that's twofold. And we've written detailed articles breaking it all down with the proof. A, to blame the Second Amendment and say the violence in Mexico was caused by that, and to call for assault weapons bans, the shutdown of gun shows, only allowed to sell one gun at a time at gun shops, total tracking, and just like you have a no-fly list with no judge, no jury, don't know why you're on it, the White House now has announced, as of Friday, they want a no-buy list for gun owners, that they just magically put you on a list. You could have never even had a parking ticket. Obama says you don't get a gun, you don't get it. You may remember 2 years ago, White House Chief of Staff gave speeches to the Violence Policy Center, the Victim Disarmament Center, and others, and we've played those clips many times. Now they're back calling it sensible restrictions everyone will agree on. And then you actually get into the meat and potatoes of what they're about to start promoting. So that's one of the things they did there. A. B, I, of course, have interviewed LAPD police officers who were there in the 80s watching the government ship in the cocaine. We have the 1997 Solicitor General CIA hearings in Congress where they admitted the CIA was shipping in tons of cocaine and cooking it into crack to destabilize the United States and pack the private prisons that the mega banks laundering the drug money owned. Also, I've interviewed people like Pulitzer Prize winner of Dark Alliance, Gary Webb. He was about to come out with more information. I talked to him about a month before he was shot twice in the back of the head. The police in California ruled it was a suicide. And he'd been telling folks that people have been breaking into his house. I, of course, have interviewed Sela Castillo, one of Gary Webb's main sources, who was the top DEA agent in Central South America and Mexico for more than a decade, an Army sniper from Vietnam. Before first he was an Army sniper, then he was, Border Patrol, then he was DEA. And he came on my show 6 years ago, again, 5, 4, 3, 2, right to 2 years ago, when the ATF shut him up for a couple shotguns, saying they were illegal, and put him in jail because he was making the rounds dealing with the ATF. And he was saying at the time, that's why he's in prison, he was saying at the time that he'd been approached. This is as Calderon was about to be elected, and he said Calderon would steal the election, as he did. And international groups that watched the election said clearly he stole most of the states in Mexico. He said that there would be a huge drug war in Mexico, that Mexico was going to be collapsed because the CIA in Fort Benning, Georgia, and now that's now in mainstream news, was funding Los Zetas, giving them automatic weapons, grenade launchers, you name it, and that Los Zetas, that, quote, was going to defect from the U.S. government and the Mexican government, was really working with the U.S. and Mexican government. Once Calderon got in was the plan. That's why as soon as he got elected, all this started, to wipe out the other 3 to 4 major cartels that would not launder all their money through U.S. and international banks. Now, by the way, that's in Bloomberg and AP. I'm going to go over all these headlines. Giving you the basics now. I'm going to walk through all of it. And so I watched all this unfold exactly as he said it would unfold. Gary Webb was working on that. They went to his house, shotgunned him twice in the back of the head. I want you to know I'm risking my life even giving this information. $500 billion a year in cocaine and heroin come into this country. It's all laundered by the big 6 banks on record. Private Federal Reserve has been caught repeatedly with hundreds of billions in cash. They're allowed to keep it all. Doesn't matter. You're going, but wait, the cops go to big links to get the drugs. Drugs were legal till the 30s. You could buy heroin, cocaine, opium, anything you wanted at a corner drugstore. Drug use was much lower, even though Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. I mean, they had it all right down at the corner drugstore. And the prohibition had ended, which the big establishment made illegal so they could make huge profits, corrupt the police, some cases 100 times what they were making before alcohol was illegal. Knocked out all their competition, then only the insiders could bring in alcohol. Some of the greatest fortunes ever, including the Kennedy fortunes, were made out of that. Kennedy's, of course, Joe Kennedy, head of the Irish Mafia on the East Coast. Chicago delivered the election to him through the Dailies, other Irish. But the issue, and this is all mainline history, go pull it up. They made alcohol illegal for a decade to take control of the market. There were hundreds of breweries then, hundreds of whiskey makers then. For decades after Prohibition, there were only a few. Now, when that ended, they had to make narcotics illegal to have something new. The big major international importers make it illegal. They control the major cities, the major distributors. Now that massively rises the price of all of their commodities. Heroin, cocaine, the list goes on and on. They bring it in. They corrupt the police further. They control the criminal networks. They control the muscle. They shut down all of their competition. They take the low-level users and give them long sentences in privately owned banks, privately owned prisons owned by... Go look at who owns the big main chains of mega prisons. We have more prisons than anywhere else in the world, more drug use than anywhere else in the world. We're number one. The people then who get caught using the drugs that were shipped in at the top of the chain, who go rob stereos and the rest of it that goes right back to the banks, they then get put in a bank-owned private prison working as slave labor for 25 cents an hour, displacing everybody else's jobs. I mean, you think the illegals drive down wages. And so the globalists are masters at making money on both ends. Now, I'm going to go over the total proof of this when we come back on the other side. Foreign banks run America, and they run the drugs. They run everything, including the white slaves.